Hey everybody, it's Chef Tiffany Nicole here, and welcome to A Recipe for Life. Hey everybody, Chef Tiffany Nicole here, and welcome back to A Recipe for Life. Today, my guest is Cindy McGee. For her, I made my lobster mac and cheese. I thought it was so fitting because some folks in my industry call it millionaire mac or $1 million mac. And so because she's a self-made millionaire, I thought this would be the perfect dish for her.
So what you're saying is, I can come over every weekend. Okay.
That's what you say, it to me.
So good.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Recipe for Life. Today we have Cindy McGee. She is the owner of Next Gen Tax Service. I'm so happy to have you here with us today. It's been a long time coming, so I'm like trying to get a meal together for you. We always miss each other, so finally getting to sit down and have food and talk. So Cindy, would you please introduce yourself to everyone here?
Sure. So I'm Cindy McGee. I'm a CPA. I'm the founder and managing director of NextGen. We are a Tulsa-based CPA firm, and we do work with underestimated founders in tax, accounting, legal, and payroll space.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is really cool. So, first question I like to ask everybody with being a chef, obviously it's around food. So, the question is, what is your favorite food or food memory or just something that just like sparks like joy for you when you think about this particular dish or meal?
Yeah. First, let me just say I love food, especially your food.
Oh.
So there's that. So it's hard to pick a favorite. I think probably a favorite food memory is my very first Thanksgiving away from my family, which sounds crazy, but my first Thanksgiving with my husband's family. He's from Arkansas.
Okay.
And they have like traditional Southern soul food. And Thanksgiving is like my husband's favorite holiday, big deal in his family. So my first time, we were like newly married, my first time being away from my family, I'm eating with my husband's family, and I had dressing for the first time.
Wait, your family doesn't make dressing?
So I thought my family made dressing,
Oh.
to be clear. I now know what I had was not dressing. It was an attempt
Oh,
at
Lord.
dressing. Sorry, Mama, but it's true. And my mother-in-law makes dressing, and it has like, she makes duck dressing.
Oh,
it has
yes.
an entire duck in it. It is a meal by itself.
Yes, it's so rich. Yeah.
Yes, and she adds giblet gravy, which
Yeah.
I'd never had.
Oh, yeah, my
We did
grandmother
not
makes
have that at my house. So that dressing, and my husband, so our very first year being married, my husband came to my family for Thanksgiving
Oh.
because he's just kind of like that.
Right.
So he went to my house, and he knew that we didn't have dressing at my house. I didn't know that there was dressing. So the second Thanksgiving we go to my mother-in-law's house, and he was like, would you learn to make my mother's dressing?
Aw.
So she, and you know, like there's not recipes, like grandmamas
Right.
and mamas don't even have the recipes.
Right.
So she literally let me watch and like shadow her to learn how to make it. And now I make dressing for my family. Even we go to my family for Thanksgiving, I can stay home so that I can have my mother-in-law's dressing. And it is my favorite food.
So do you eat it like outside of the holidays, or do you just
I
only
do.
eat it? Really?
I do. It's hard to make. It's a lot to it.
Yeah.
So it's not, you know, like a weekday type thing.
Right.
But there's like a special kind of thing happening on the weekend. We'll make some dressing and kind of hoard it. Like everybody's trying to get their share to take home with them. I'm like, no, this is mine. I'm gonna keep this in my house.
Yes. Oh.
So we use it a lot.
We were just talking about that. I think I only want dressing like at Thanksgiving, and that I don't even want it for Christmas.
Really? You
Yes.
need to have my mother-in-law's dressing.
Well, I love it, and I probably would, but I think I don't know. It's just like in my mind, it's like this is for Thanksgiving, and that's it. Like it's good. I eat so much of it on Thanksgiving, and then that's it. Like I don't have to have it no more. I actually had this a friend of mine. Their mom used to make seafood dressing, like oysters and stuff.
Oh yes, I've had that too.
Bomb, okay, so good. I love that story. It's so funny too, away from your family, because you would
Away
think,
from my family.
yeah,
Yeah.
you would think like. So did he have anything to say about y'all's like the Thanksgiving at your house?
Did he have anything to say?
Yeah.
My husband is a cut up. So
Oh.
yes. To this day, we've been married 18 years this
Uh-huh.
year. So to this day, he still talks about his first Thanksgiving at my family's house. And he calls what we thought was dressing, he calls it stuffing.
Oh.
And he says it can be served with like tongs. Like he eats it constantly. He was like, it was dry. And it was so, it is.
No.
We learned a lesson about
Lord, were you not offended?
You know, my husband always says crazy stuff.
Oh, so you're like,
take it
I'm
all the
used to
time. I'm used to it. I'm used to it.
That is hilarious. I think it's so funny too, like on both sides of families, always like one family that can like throw down, and there's the other family like, hey, food is cool, you know.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Usually when we go to my family now, I'll cook. Because my parents are getting older anyway, so they probably appreciate the break. But my mom does not cook like traditional Southern soul food.
Really? So outside of the stuffing, what else did y'all have? Like nothing?
So we have the same dishes, but like sweet potatoes. I also love my mother-in-law sweet potatoes. So she makes her sweet potatoes she literally starts with butter in the bottom of the pan, no water. Mm-hmm. Puts the sweet potatoes on top, the sugar, and then like season them with cinnamon and everything after the fact. My mother, when she makes sweet potatoes, she puts them in water and boils them and drains them, right? So we had sweet potatoes. We didn't have candy yet.
No, so you can't candy them if you boil them.
Right, right. So I was just used to what my mom made, and so that's all I knew. And then when I, married my husband, and he's from Arkansas, and they can throw down.
So let's talk about Next Gen and kind of how you have started your business.
Yeah.
And just kind of, maybe some challenges as a Black woman, in this industry. What kind of inspired you to start? It's kind of a question, but what kind of inspired you to start this business? What made you believe that you could even do it? And just kind of sharing, what some of those challenges were and what your advice would be to someone that may want to do the same thing.
Yeah, so Next Gen is almost 5 years old. We'll be 5 in October. Mm-hmm. So I started it, really, I guess the seed for it was planted kind of fresh out of grad school. Mm-hmm. So I started working with a big global CPA firm. I was just a staff accountant, and I worked with like big corporations and business owners, and realized we were applying the tax law to save them money. So the company wasn't paying tax, and the founder was not paying much in tax either. And I was like blown away that I, as a staff accountant making very little money, was paying more in taxes than this big corporation and the owner of it, and they made a whole lot more money than I did.
Right.
So my first instinct was like, that's illegal, I'm a whistleblower, let me find the truth.
Right.
And in trying to pursue the truth, what I learned is the truth is that's lawful, and it's actually the way that businesses help themselves grow. Mm-hmm. So it was like way back then that I kind of imagined, what if we brought that back to our community? What if Black and brown founders had that same expertise applied to their businesses to help them grow? Mm-hmm. So that was the seed. I didn't really, nurture or cultivate that seed until about 5 years ago. Okay. When I started Next Gen. And you asked the question, like, what made you think it was even possible? I'll be honest, girl, I was naive.
Really?
I had no idea the uphill climb it would be to launch a business. So I'm a Black woman, so that in of itself is a challenge, but I'm in a very male-dominated industry. The typical CPA, if I can just let it all hang out, is like a balding white man.
Right.
Like, it is not this Black woman who's, full of life. So like just my presence was disruptive in and of itself. And so then there's this like need to kind of like qualify yourself to like show up in a way that business owners want to trust you and believe you and see that you can help them. And so like my heart to bring the expertise that I use with these big corporations back to my community had the hurdle of helping make sure that my community and otherwise like trusted me and believed in my ability to perform. Right. And so that I did not anticipate, like the emotional toughness, the hill to climb of just getting people to trust you and want to do business with you. That was an extreme challenge that I wasn't really prepared for. I've learned along the way, and I kind of have my own way of helping to like reinforce some of the ideas that I know, will help me get there. But starting Next Gen is something that God put in my heart. Like this was a calling for me. It wasn't just a way to like make money. I say all the time, like if you want to make money, don't be an entrepreneur. Right. Because we don't make money for a minute, right? So, and if you want to just make money, there's easier ways to make money than to start a business. Right. You could be a highly compensated employee, go to sleep every night, get off at 5, and be good. Like, that's not entrepreneurship. That's not what you're in it for. And so I'm in it because I'm called to do this and to work with businesses that look like us. And that like keeps me encouraged when I like kind of have to have the uphill battles and the climbs. But even beyond like getting started and like recognizing kind of all of those challenges, then sustaining, like, that's a whole nother story.
Right.
So I read, I'm a little bit of a numbers geek, you're probably not surprised by that. But I read some statistics and it talked about how like the likelihood of any entrepreneur making it to 5 years is in the teens.
Oh, wow.
Like you got like, let's say at max a 19% chance of even making it to the 5-year mark, right?
Wow.
Then when you say you're a black person, now that goes down to 11% chance.
Wow.
When you become a black woman, 7%.
Jesus.
7% chance of even like making it to this point. And then to have made $1 million in business,
Right.
3%.
Jesus.
3% chance.
So, kind of get into that journey about becoming a $1 million business. I mean, you know, that sounds like, I mean, it is huge, but it's like, how did you break that down? Like, or was it even a goal? Or like, how did you get to that point? Because I know sometimes people like, some people say it's something like that is very intentional. Some people will say, well, it just kind of happened. But it's like, for you, kind of what was that journey and like, what kind of things were you doing to make sure you got to that point, if it was a goal?
Yeah, it definitely was a goal. It was a 5-year goal. We did it in 3 years.
Oh,
so
wow.
it was a 5-year goal, but I'm a numbers geek. So I'm like breaking it down by, okay, what do we need to do by month and then by week? And then like, there's a process that we do in the CPA world called revenue mapping. Like, so what services do I need to be able to sell at what price point to get to this number? And I had this quote unquote scientific formula of like how I was gonna accomplish that. And I think that's important. Like, you need to have a path, a plan, that makes sense.
Right.
But girl, when it came all the way down to it, it was prayer.
Right.
That was a God thing. It was a faith move. It was even like the goal to make $1 million in a year was crazy. It was crazy until it happened, but it was crazy to think that you could do that in 5 years. And so I tell people all the time, like, my number one business strategy is prayer. Like, we're gonna pray about it and see what God wants us to do, because what's happening at NextGen is what God is doing at NextGen. It is not what I am doing, or even the people that that work in the practice. It's really what God is doing, and we're just the vessels that are performing the work. So yeah, I prayed real hard. Cried a lot. Had a lot of months that I was like, I don't even know if we can make payroll, let alone make $1 million this year. I mean, it was not this steady climb like people might think. And I think oftentimes people will see like the mountaintop experience, like see the announcement that is, oh, we made $1 million this year, and like fail to consider if it's a mountaintop experience, there was a climb.
Right.
But they only kind of focus in on the mountaintop. And I think that's like a shortfall of entrepreneurs. We don't talk about the valley experiences, the climbs that are necessary. And like every time I'm given a chance to share, I'm like, let me tell you how hard it really was to be here. Don't take a little snippet of an announcement and think, oh my gosh, you made it. It's like there was months, if not years, of the journey that got to that mountaintop experience.
Right. Yeah, no, I think for me personally, I always connect with the valley experiences. Like, I am a person that loves reading autobiographies. Like, I can, like right now I'm reading Billy Porter's, and I love Billy Porter. But so I'm reading his, and I'm like, he was explaining just where he was about to throw in the towel. He was like, I was so done, and then he got the role in the show Pose, because he was like kind of typecasted to just Broadway, and he was trying to break out of that and kind of expand his career, and was just like, I was having a fit, I was crying, I was doing this whole thing, and like my agent calls me and I land this opportunity. So yes, I think the Valley stories are so important, and I think that that's a big reason why I even created Recipe for Life, is because I want people to hear more about people's journeys, and just to know, like, we have this tendency to kind of romanticize people's journey, or like what it looks like to be successful. Like, we look at some of our favorite celebrities or pastors or whoever, influencers, and we want to say like, oh my God, they have a cute little family, and they have this like, girl, they struggled to have that baby. The husband was, is whatever, what I'm saying? They done went through all this stuff, but you just see this end result. But I think it's so much value in the journey. And so I love the fact that we, have this space to share that.
There should be a lot more conversations about that. I'm reading this book right now. I say reading. I use Audible. I listen to the books.
Well,
You know,
I'm doing Audible right now too.
Yeah,
same thing. Yeah.
But it's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's written by Ben Horowitz, and it was recommended to me by like the CEO of Revolt TV, as a matter of fact. I was at a conference and he was talking about this book. But it's essentially a book about like different valley experiences that this gentleman had. And it was like what to do when all of it's hard. Like there's not, like sometimes there's like this kind of ebb and flow of, oh, it's a good season, and oh, it's a bad season. What when you just have an extended, tough season, like when it's really, really, really hard. And I've learned in like my own experience and my own journey, like the hard seasons, the valley experiences, the climb is the majority of the time.
Yes.
The mountaintop is like, just like in the summits of a mountain, like it's the narrowest, like finest little piece of it.
Yeah.
So like when you see that part of a person's life, that's like a really, really finite piece.
Yeah.
But the valley and the climb, that's the longest part.
Yes.
And so I have found it is so important to like obviously be prayed up, but to have community because leadership can get real lonely.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And you can feel like you're the only one dealing with it. And if you compare yourselves to something you see on social media, you will think you're doing it wrong because you're not having their experiences.
Right.
Which, fun fact, some of them ain't having that experience either. They just making it look like that. So there's that too. But yeah, I think it's like important to like surround yourself with people that are gonna have your back, that are gonna speak life into you when you feel like you're losing, remind you of your wins when you feel like you're losing, and then celebrate a win when they happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's real. I love that. I actually haven't asked any in a while, but I do want to ask you, what was like a moment where you wanted to be like, you know what, I'm done with this. Like, what was like the thing that kind of kept you pushing with your business?
There's so many. Like I'm keeping it all the way real. Like I wish I could say, oh, there was just this one time that I was like, oh, I'm done. No, there's a bunch of times.
Like every day I wake up and I'm done, but I keep going.
I'm like, thank God for brand new grace and mercy every single day, because I would need a new supply every single day.
Right.
But like there's quite a few that are kind of like rise to the top. But one that comes to mind is I had an experience where I guess was hoping to be able to be impactful to a group of people. And I was like making a lot of sacrifices to create that impact, right? So from reducing fees to restructuring my schedule to like doing all of the things to try, which hindsight is always 20/20. That was the wrong thing to do anyway. But really, really trying to like be impactful and make impact the priority, and say income can be something that's like less important in this instance. Had done everything I possibly could to make it successful, and we had done our part, like checked all the boxes, right? And the same group that I had worked so hard to serve, who I thought at the end of this would be grateful, would be complimentary and supportive, instead chose to find opportunities to pick apart, find opportunities to complain, to express frustration, to ask for more, despite the fact that we already really like overextended ourselves.
Right.
And I thought, like, how can we go so hard for people and those same people like tear us down?
Right.
And I was like, I'm in this for the people. Like, I'm in this for impact. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I can't even get that done.
Right. Ooh.
And so I was like, why am I even doing this? Like, what's the point?
Right.
If I'm not getting the impact that I desire. And I had to, with the help of the community, understand that like it's bigger than just one group, it's bigger than one project, it's bigger than one thing. There's like a whole generation of people that hits the name Next Gen that we want to impact with the work that we do. So I had to get out of this isolated focus on one thing and look at the bigger picture. And that's what helped me kind of dig myself out of that hole and keep pushing forward. But I think I've been most challenged, perhaps, I guess, in my journey with getting over this, in some ways, unhealthy people-pleasing philosophy. I'm a strong believer in therapy. I tell everybody, like, if you want to be successful in business, you better get a therapist. It is necessary. And so, like, in my therapy process, I've learned that, like, we essentially give up our power and give up our ability to be proud of ourselves because we're relying upon someone else's opinion of us and what we do as, like, the reward for the work. And that experience was when, like, the group that I'm trying to please is not pleased.
Right.
It's like, am I worth what I'm saying that I should be? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And so it really, like, shook me more than maybe it would have an average person, because I had so much kind of a people-pleasing philosophy on my value and what I do, and even what NextGen does is based on other people's opinion. And I had to learn that the worth and the value is in it, is in me.
Right.
And what everybody else says about it is just extra.
Right.
Or unimpactful.
Right.
But the value exists in what it is. And so that was probably, like, one of the biggest things I had to learn in business, to, like, understand your value is rooted in who you are and how you feel about it, and not what others have to say.
Yeah, you know, I have had several conversations with people about just kind of when you kind of go above and beyond for people. A lot of times you find that those are the people that unfortunately aren't always the most grateful. And so, cause, like, I have, like, different younger chefs and people in the industry that kind of ask me for advice and stuff like that I kind of mentor, and they, you know, are like, well, it's this group and they're, you know, whatever people, and, you know, they are whatever level of impact, and I should just do. I'm like, listen, for one, you know, the people that are going to ask you for the most of the time and ask you to sacrifice all this stuff, they're not going to be your clientele ultimately, and they're not going to be grateful for, you know what I mean? You have to value yourself. And I'm not saying that you don't work with people, but, you know, I think that just in my experience, I haven't, like, recognized that pattern of, like, hey, I've, like, been over backwards. I've tried to think that, you know, this is a great opportunity for me, but it ends up not being always like that, because sometimes it's like, okay, I'm gonna help them, and then it's like, well, this was wrong, and we wanted this, and it's just like, listen, I didn't even charge y'all a third of what I should have charged you for this work that took me all this time, and I had to go to 18 different grocery stores to do all this stuff, because a lot of times too, those are the most difficult clients, and it's like,
It's true.
And then you have the client that you're like, okay, here's the invoice, it's gonna be $20,000. Like, all right, boop.
Yep. No question.
I trust you. So, on your journey to build this business and just, you know, being a great mom and, you know, wife and all of these things, like, who has been, like, somebody that has, like, inspired you or just motivated you throughout, you know, your journey?
So I would say for motivation, it's definitely my husband. So he believed in NextGen before anybody had even heard of NextGen. He was, I like to say, an early investor in NextGen. He was not necessarily a voluntary investor. I don't know if he knew he was investing. He didn't get a prospectus or anything, but he was investing. And all along the journey, because he's there day after day, seeing, you know, the valleys, the mountain climbs, and the mountaintops. And he's, like, always behind me, always, like, consistent and persistent in pushing me forward, which I strongly believe that, like, part of what allows me to be successful in business is because I have him alongside. Like, I tell him all the time, I'm like, I don't consider myself self-made because I have a partner and I need you. Like, he's truly my helpmate. So that's what has allowed me to experience my success. And, you know, I'm usually the one out front talking about NextGen, but he's the one that really partnered with me to make NextGen. So he's also a whole doctor, so there's that thing too. But, you know, there's that.
What kind of doctor is he?
He's a family practice and sports medicine doctor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're in the same building. So
okay. I
in the
didn't
church store
realize
on the
that.
second floor.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
We're together. So, and then I would say for inspiration, it's probably my kids.
Okay.
So, they're 11 and 14. I call them the bosses of the house because they are. Their calendar is way more important than ours. My son has a school dance that we have to get into. So that's my priority today. But nonetheless, they, you know, kids in general, like, they come to this world a blank slate. And so many of the things that they will ultimately become are put into them at a very young age, like seeds that get planted really, really, really early. And I was raised by employees. So I was taught, get an education, get a good job, do what someone else asked you to do in order to be successful. Work your way up the corporate ladder, which is a really slow climb. And it's not built for Black women, so that's a whole nother story.
Right.
But that's like what was put into me as a kid, and what I desire to put into my kids is an entrepreneurial mindset, and that's truly what they have because they hustle me every day. So there's that, and they are. I am trying to create a legacy for them. Like I want NextGen to have an impact that outlives me, and that is something that's going to be impactful to them and to their kids and their kids' kids. And so my mindset when it comes to what I'm building and the way we're expanding and the plans for our future is bound up in what I want to pour into my kids and what I want them to be proud of. And so I talked earlier about how I'm a recovering people pleaser. And so now I frame my thoughts about like what I'm doing and what I'm building around what will this mean to LJ? What will this mean to Jaden? What will they think of this move that I'm making, and how will this make their moves easier? And if I can feel comfortable at the end of the day that what I'm doing is going to leave a legacy for them, then I'm good with it, regardless of what somebody else thinks about it.
Right.
So that's what inspires me to get up and do it and take the tough mountain climbs that come with building a business.
Yeah, for sure. I think that has to be central for any entrepreneur to be successful. Like it has to be like, okay, this is why I'm doing this. Because when you understand your why, you can get up and do it. Because otherwise, like when you're trying to do it for like what you're saying about social media, you see somebody else doing it, it's like you're gonna burn out quick.
Real quick.
You're gonna be trying to make this perfect life that you've seen, and it doesn't exist.
It doesn't.
So so what I always close out with is with everything we've talked about, what is your recipe for life?
Wow. Summed up into one. Let's see. I would say all too often the things that we want to do, be it professional or personal, are things that we have to believe for ourselves first. I talk a lot about like mindset and how that has impacted me in business, but we have to have like a deep-seated faith in what we're called to do, and come what may, we are unshaken in that. And I think too often we look at different opportunities that are really distractions. Something that's flashy, seems easy, seems real good in somebody else's world, and can chase after that when that's not really what's in us. That's not the purpose God's given us. And so what I do and the way that I lead my life is that I look for what do I feel that is deeply central to who I am and the legacy that I want to lead, and how do I walk out each day what I'm doing that honors that, that's in alignment with that. And so I try not to be swayed or distracted by anything that doesn't link back to that. And I have a really like simple test that I use, because as you start to grow in business, quote unquote opportunities get thrown at you all the time. It's like, hey, you want this venture money to do this? Hey, you want to come to this market and do this? Hey, you want to come here and speak? There's like all of these things that will demand your attention. And so I try to keep like that central idea of, does this get me closer to the legacy I want my kids to leave? And if the answer is not a hell yes, then it's a no for me. And so I stay true to that and in alignment with that. And that pursuit has taken me thus far, is going to take me as far as God wants me to go.
Yeah, that is awesome. Do you ever feel like when you get comfortable in the like not people pleasing and in the like this is what is in alignment with my purpose, do you ever feel like anxious about making it, or initially did you feel anxious about making that decision? Because it seems like at first you're like, am I playing myself about being super, and like who came up with it, or you start questioning yourself kind of like, who came up with this, test, or like, you know what I mean? Because it seems like for me, I get in that space sometimes. Like I'll feel so clear some days, and then some days I'm like, wait a second, should I be doing this? Or does this make more sense for me? Because I had an opportunity recently they came up, and that kind of, it boiled down to like, this is not what you need to be doing. Like, this is not an opportunity for you, really, you know. But it was at first I was questioning myself, because I'm like, okay, I do feel confident in certain, you know, that this may not be, but then I'm like, well, wait, could it be this? I'm like, why am I like even going through and beating myself? But I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of deal with that, because it's like, you know, your success is based on your decisions. So it's like, you know, for me, it's like, okay, yes, I know what I feel like is in alignment and where I'm going, or in line with my vision and my purpose, but sometimes, you know, it's not as easy to be like, no, I'm not gonna do that, you know, because it seems like you said, the shiny, sparkly new thing, you know what I mean? So
it's true. Like, I wish I could say that it's a simple process to run that test, like to ask that question and say, is it an alignment? It's not, and I still get anxious around it. I still question. I still even make mistakes on it. Like, I still like make a decision that's really not in alignment, and I'm like, oh, I stepped off course. Right. But I think too that it's even more challenging when you think about it from a business standpoint, because usually the opportunity has a dollar attached to it, right? And so you're like, I could make money doing this. Like, how could that be wrong?
Right.
I can make money doing this, right? And so I learned from bad experiences, in all honesty, that like I may get off course and make a decision that's going to be financially good. Like, I'm gonna make money at it, but it's gonna create an L somewhere else. Because you only can spend time in one place, right? So if I'm gonna go here and do this, while it seems like this is a good opportunity, I'm missing out on a better option here. And having seen that play out several times, I get more and more confident with each no that I give, because I've seen when I give the wrong yes, the impact that it has. And so that's, I guess, a trial and error process, just a lived experience. But I wish I could say I was completely comfortable in like making those right calls. I'm still like walking that out, figuring out what to say yes to and what I should say no to.
Yeah, because I think, well, I'm so happy to hear you say that too, because I think like a lot of young women, you know, especially in our community, you know, a lot of us, especially Black women, we look up to you. So we're like, man, like, Cindy killing it. She got, you know, she got this $1 million business. Like, this is crazy. And it's like, we would think that it would be like, yes, no, I know what to say yes to. I know how to, you're just like, okay, so we're not in this alone. Like, we're not just, you know, going through this and thinking we're crazy, because I swear I'll be like, oh, am I crazy? Am I tripping? You know, I'm tripping. I'm second guessing myself over and over, or, you know, whatever. But yeah, it's awesome to hear that it's like, okay, you're not in this alone. This is kind of normal to go through.
I talked to a founder. I was at a conference in Cincinnati, Black Tech Week, and I talked to a founder, also a CPA, has a firm with 300 employees. Like, we have 25. He has 300 employees, this gentleman. And I asked him a question. I was like, hey, you know, I'm just curious. Like, what was the point where you were like, yeah, I got it. Like, yes. I'm gonna go on vacation. I'm gonna be living it up on the beach. I'm gonna phone it in. Like, where were you? And he's like 11 years into business, so like double where we are. And he said, I'll call you when I get there.
Oh, wow.
When I get to that point where I can like, yep, I'm good, I'll call you and get there. And so sometimes people will say like, hey, Cindy, it looks like you're good. I'm still on this uphill climb, just like y'all. And it is apparently a long climb, because he's twice as far along as me, and he's still like on the journey. And I think entrepreneurship probably just is that way. I think we're gonna rise to new challenges, even when you kind of like, I've kind of found my space and in my zone in Tulsa, and now we moved to Dallas. We expanded to Dallas. And so it's finding our way in Dallas, and building relationships, and finding the right people to come support the vision there. And Dallas is just one of several places that we aim to go. And so I think even when you get to the sweet spot, you evolve and you end up doing more. So that's just a part of it.
Yeah, I remember my dad, last thing I'll say, my dad, so he was a musician, and so he, I remember my mom asked me, but my dad was super like, huge personality, like life of the party type of person. And my mom asked him, like, do you ever feel nervous before you go perform? And he was like, I think that at the moment that you don't feel nervous anymore, that you're gonna mess up and you're gonna lose your special thing. So I think it's like that kind of like the nerves and the like kind of a little bit unsettled. It's kind of like the like magic that you gotta have to possess in order to continue to do well. Because once you feel like I've arrived, things are probably gonna go downhill from there. So.
It's true. It's true.
So, But yeah, this has been awesome. I appreciate you so much for coming through.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, for sure. And thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Some gems were dropped, so I hope this helps people that may, have aspirations to be an entrepreneur themselves. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you later.